So welcome to our advances in AI. Here is the link, and I will review a little bit of what we did before, and I will apologize. I think there was some mess up or we missed some, let's call them shows. So we did miss a few, but we're trying to do our best. So that is the link that you need here. And I'm giving that link to you on chat. Here's the chat. This is our run link, and some of you already have it. Now you can hear, right? Right now there is sound and you hear me as well. Now the next thing is that let's review what we have done. Let's go, let's start. We started as a maybe one-time webinar in Hugging Face. Then what happened is that OpenAI came very prominently. We started back in when, December 9, and then OpenAI really beat all measurements. And now there are many things that's going on. So therefore we continued. And what we do is every time we review what happened. And as you find with the talk shows is that what happened is not that important. We see what's going on, we see what was going on, but what we're interested in is today, and that is today. And today, I think the whole world wants to build applications with ChatGPT. And then the other half of the world wants to build them with open source. So we'll look at both, and I will actually show when those two come together. Okay, now I see that nobody chats anything as yet. You have that link. So what we're going to do is look at what's called generative AI. So let me just tell you a little bit about the trends of what's going on. And that is, first of all, my personal trend is that I'm teaching my first course in OpenAI, essentially next week. So it will be hard work, but by the end of next week, by Friday, you will have an update. There will be a few more interesting things to look at, because I already taught the open source part of it. So maybe we'll do a diagram and maybe it will be helpful. So what I think is the diagramming tool. And by the way, we discussed maybe even last time or in the class, we discussed, is that a danger or is it not a danger? But today I'm not interested in that. What I want to do is set things straight. Okay, here. And I'm manipulating some windows that maybe you don't see, but they allow me to watch the chat. So we are talking about AI. And then we're talking about large language model, LL. And in order to sound like you know something, you need to keep mentioning this LLMs. So if you're talking in English, LLM is what should come up all the time. But that really is more of a buzzword than the real thing we're going to discuss. So first of all, there is an open side of it. And there is a proprietary. Okay, now on the open side, of course, you have all of the publications about the models, but I think it's good to start with glue. So let me show you glue. Glue benchmark it is called. And I will give you that link also so that you can open it on your side. There you are. Here's the glue. And glue, it never hurts to repeat that's the progress that humanity is making, because that shows you the best models, the best officially measured models. And they started, let's go down below, but probably we will not see, maybe here. I don't understand why even before there was nothing. You see 85, 86, that's just not enough. But they started about 70% on all these scores. What scores are these? These are specific benchmark scores. So you can mouse over that and it will tell you that it is the corpus, this one, the corpus of linguistic acceptability by Matthew Core. Some of it is published by companies, some by Microsoft, some by Stanford, that's the Stanford Sentiment, and so on. So they all started, as you'll see here, in the, well, actually, that is what I will say started it. The SIBO, that is a departure from the keyword approach. You all remember that there is search, and in search there are keywords, and keywords usually have a few numbers with them. Like this keyword is more important, and that keyword is less important. So when I'm searching in the search engine, I'm picking up the keywords that are more important to my query. So therefore, the search engine looks at your query, or well, let's put it, used to do this. The search engine used to look at your query, see which words are important, compare that to the keywords that it have in its index, do it very fast, and come back with the important links first and less important links later. That is what Google started with. That is the page algorithm. And SIBO was a departure from that. SIBO stands for, I don't remember quite, but the previous ones was called the bag of words. And this is a bag of something else. And it said, no, we're not going to just simply attach importance to the words. We will attach the meaning to the words. How can you attach meaning to the words? By representing the words by a very long vector. Practically, it is between 500 numbers to 1,000 numbers, but sometimes they today always use 2,000. And that gave a first improvement that here, even though that maybe is not, that's the beginning of all. So search changed. And not only Google search changed, but also the open source search changed. For example, Elasticsearch. Elastic, of course, is built on top of open source of the search engine Lucene. So I would assume that it is also in Lucene now, but I have not looked. It definitely is an Elastic, and that has some meaning, some name like meaningful search or word embedding search. That's all marketing. What's important is that you put numbers on those words and you make them reflect the meaning so that similar words will have similar numbers. Now that's amazing if you think of that. There's a whole world of meaning, a whole universe, and actually the vector space. And in this vector space, you can assign a place where all the mice should collect, because all the things related to mice are in that place, and all the dogs will be in another place, and so on. So that was the first invention. After that, people started building step number 2. So that was the first step called word embedding. That name, I would say it's not explaining what it means, but what it means is vector. is vectors are assigned to words. And therefore, on Elasticsearch, it got the name of vector search, which is by now totally misleading. I'm not searching inside the vectors. The next step came in this diagram here with bird models. That was the next big thing, because the very first appearance of bird is around here. I'm not looking, but it's somewhere here. And then they started all variations on bird, and other Sesame Street dolls, even Kai bird. Very interesting. What is this bird? What is very important is the letter T in bird, and that stands for transformer. Now, I'm not sure if that ever shows explicitly. Trying to search for transformer. I can't, that's okay, it doesn't bother me. These are transformers. I'm doing something on my site, that thing. Okay, it is not happy me being here, and it's trying to help me in some way. Maybe I can go back. No, I cannot. Glue, but I'm almost done with glue. That's okay. So today you have an upper row in the 93%, I believe. Let us wait for that to come back. 91.3. Well, it takes a lot of work for each 0.1 to appear, but that is how ChatGPT is made. GPT stands for T. The last letter is the most important, and it transforms. What is transformer? That is a new kind of neural network architecture. So in every case, we're talking about neural network architectures, but many things are built on top. So the first thing is transformers are a separate type of neural network. For example, there were CNN, convolutional neural network, again, a special type of neural network. Then there were RNN, recurrent neural network, and now there are transformer neural network, but they're not called CNN. I don't know why. Instead, they're called transformers, probably a better sounding name. And all of these are either transformers or similar ideas models. So that's where we are. And we said that there were open ones and proprietary ones. So the simple way to say it is that the king of all open source is called Hugging Face. What is Hugging Face? Think of it as GitHub not the GitHub, but GitHub. Sorry, and not the GitHub, but the GitHub of machine learning. And just like GitHub allows you to store your projects, your code, so Hugging Face allows you to store your models, but it actually gives you much more. So I will spend a little time on Hugging Face, but let's put something here on the right corner. So on the right corner, most surprising, is Open AI. Now, the amazing thing, of course, that it has the word open in it. But the story was that it started in 2015, that it started as a foundation to make all of AI open. And we know today it ended as something completely different. And Sam Altman, who is the CEO of that company, created a for-profit branch within the OpenAI, which was an open source foundation, an open foundation. And this closed one was good enough as vehicle for investors because investors didn't want to invest essentially in heating the space. That's why one of the famous physicists joked that he only had fish because he didn't want to warm up the space, and fish do not do that. So back to OpenAI, there is a closed part of that, and all of its products by now are closed and only come to us as ready-made tools. So they allow you to do things with them, but you don't get the actual model. Okay, that resulted, as we all know, in an $8 billion investment in the OpenAI by Microsoft. And just briefly, to make sure that we know, Microsoft is making great use of that because they are the biggest investor in OpenAI closed part, and they are featuring it everywhere. In Bing, they are claiming the best search engine away from Google because it's not only search engine, but it's conversation. So that's how you do it. Just in case you've never done it, you close this one, but you open another one and you say ChatGPT. Well, actually say better than ChatGPT. You get the exact link right here. Now, most people have, of course, done this. Those people who have not, there you are. And why being GPT does not work? You can ask any questions, and okay, it didn't understand it. What I meant is that somehow Bing only works within the Microsoft browser, which is Edge, and then you direct it to Bing, and then you need to log in into Microsoft, which is all as you would expect, but then it doesn't work for me. For some reason, it just doesn't let me talk to ChatGPT. Then I just saw an article, one of those search engine optimization articles, which say, don't worry, anyway, ChatGPT is much better because it is ChatGPT. I'll come back to this. And being GPT, its major purpose is promotional. So according to this article, don't worry about Bard and don't Bard Google, and don't worry about Bing GPT, and that's their game, but use ChatGPT. So I actually find it true. I prefer to talk to ChatGPT because with these models, you walk the balance of, are you a corporate beast or are you a great thing? And so ChatGPT is on the side of being a great thing. It doesn't promote anything much, but instead it concentrates on being the right thing. As opposed to the corporate, they concentrate on promotion. The end result, well, the corporation doesn't want to get into trouble, so it will be more political correct. To make it more political correct, you limit its creativity. And that is why creativity on ChatGPT is more than it is on Bing. So, okay, let's not go there. Instead, let's come back here, and we were describing the landscape. Hugging Face is a king of machine learning with 200,000 models there. Wow. How do you find the best there? That's a good question. We're not addressing that very much now. Besides, when you look at their shows and posts, blog posts, they only talk about how easy it is to use. But the big question, how do you find the model that actually works, is not answered. So first of all, I plan to do this. No surprises. I'll go to Hugging Face and show you the Hugging Face and how it works and what it does. Secondly, I'll show you how you use OpenAI and ChatGPT. So let's put it here, which is open. And then I will show you the latest project that combines them, and that is really interesting. But this latest project will be better described next week. So first of all, let's go to Hugging Face and let's see if there are any chats. Please, if there are any chats, just speak up because maybe I don't see the chats. So I promised Hugging Face. Let's go to Hugging Face here. So in Hugging Face, you need to create your own account, and it is free. So it's easy to create, and I encourage you to create just because you have to be with it. And being with it used to mean that you have an account on GitHub. And now that, of course, means that you have an account on Hugging Face. Then you go to models. So they allow you to reuse the existing models. Now, of course, you know that, but that is big because it means you don't need to train the model again and again from scratch. Instead, you get the existing model, you train it some more, and you save it like I saved it. Here it is. Here's my model, but save it, trained additionally and saved. That's another one. And that is my data set that I saved yesterday. I'll show you why is that. Okay, so we were looking at models. Each model, or most models, allow you to play with them right away without code, right here. Here it says Paris is the mask you need to put in, and it should probably put in the capital. And since many people ask this question and it is cached, then I don't really have to recompute. It will be the same. Paris is the capital of France, heart of France, centre in French, and city. But let's do something more interesting. So first of all, let's do this. Capital of USA. How about of Houston? That's confusing. What it is going to answer is interesting. Well, I did succeed in confusing it. Now, how about that? If we just say okay, it's a capital city. But if I ask, okay, stop. If I ask Paris is, I'm moving that window away. Houston. It's like an ad for an advertising agency, but that is therein lies a problem, as they say. BERT, it may be a nice model, but it got confused because it's not generic enough. Now, BERT has 44 million downloads. Each download means that somebody like me here uses it. That's called the download. Whether I further train on that or just use it, that doesn't matter. So last month I had 44 million downloads, but it doesn't hold a candle, so to say, to this model. Okay, why? Why is that? I see a little question. It's a deep question about stable diffusion, and that we'll discuss later on, but not right now. Okay, so good. Well, that's because ChatGPT here was trained, is trained, and it's not just a model that is out there, but it's a product that is actively developed by a very advanced company with $8 billion invested into that. So compare this to just a model that was wonderful and published at a certain time, but doesn't change. In addition, this ChatGPT is updated every maybe month or two. How often are you updated? Yes, political correct. It's up to OpenAI to release other models, but I know that they are being released and it's different often every day. So that's why. Plus, they have the human in the loop, or they have some similar training. A human in the loop is not just a person from the street who is talking. It's a special algorithm that allows to incorporate what the model knows to his or her comments. A big area that makes it very smart. So that's why. Now let's go to the picture we were doing. Good question. And also thank you for Kiran, thank you for reminding us. RLHF is a human in the loop, except that RLHF stands for something else technically, but it is a human who further trains the model. BERT does not have it. To look into this, you can look into an article by OpenAI, where they give you the basic ideas of what it would take, but no implementation, no code, and it's not confirmed that they actually used exactly that. But I think everybody agrees that they do use RLHF, or human in the loop, to train their model. BERT doesn't do this. Now, there are later works that do this, and there are open source works that do it. But even so, there are some people who are smarter than others. So far, I think there is the 99% people will agree that OpenAI ChatGPT is the best. There are lots of things that come up all the time, and open source competitors. My problem with them is that they are just that. They are open source competitors. That is marketing device. Marketing device is that if you cannot beat somebody, just join with them. So say, I am a Xerox on so-and-so. Maybe you are not, but that immediately positions you as to what are you? Oh, okay, he's a Xerox, I know now, and he doesn't have to spend much on marketing because he just piggybacks on Xerox marketing. And that is what the other models, in my personal, very insignificant opinion, that's what the others do. So, okay, if you agree with me so far, or at least see my point of view, yes, there is the open source, and yes, there is a way of using ChatGPT. So now practically, how do you use them? Let's put this as a question here. What to do? Let's put it this way. So what do you do if you want to implement some kind of AI? So first of all, I'll tell you how you use separately Hugging Face and how you use separately OpenAI. For that, maybe I will start from the right. I will tell you how you use OpenAI, and then how do you use Hugging Face. And then the amazing thing, you can use them together. So that is what I want to show you. So first of all, how do you use ChatGPT? Well, other than trying it this way, with the limit, you have a limit. Where is my, oh, it didn't go away. Let's refresh. It comes back with the cap. It says there is a limit of 25 messages every 3 hours. I did bump into this limit once. I had a long conversation with it, which essentially consisted of, no, you didn't understand me. What I meant was this. And it said, yeah, you reached 25 messages in 3 hours. So come back in 3 hours. And it even nicely calculated when I should come back, like 2 in the morning. So what do? What you do is you go to ChatGPT API. Let's find it. API. And that is found right here, probably. Yes. And then you go into products for developers, overview. That's where you get that. So the first thing that you need to do is to subscribe. On that, on ChatGPT, wherever it is, no, I don't find it now. Here. On that, I am on the ChatGPT Plus, $20 a month subscription. On that, however, you will need a pay-as-you-go subscription. And that will be a few, very few cents per each, maybe 1,000 words. So practically speaking, not exactly words, but tokens, and tokens and what you break your words into. For example, I'm thinking multifarious. Well, might be one word, there might be multiple words, but Gmail, for example, Mark at Gmail. Well, maybe you will want to convert Mark into one token and Gmail into another token, or maybe you will want to use them as one loan word. So that's what tokens. If you decide to break it into words, also every period is a token, every comma is a token. So there are about 1,500, I would say, tokens per 100 words, and that will be your price. You can find those prices inside once you subscribe. And the usual expectation is that an experiment with one lab will cost you around $1, where you will do a few things. What do you do? What are those things? Well, first of all, you ask ChatGPT questions in the code and it comes back. Now, for that, you need to go to the tutorial and it explains what you should ask here first, but it doesn't say how exactly you do it in the code. So for example, you start with an instruction and you tell, do this for me. And then it will probably do that. Let's try it. But I need to log in and I hope that I'm logged in. So suggest a name for a horse. And then you say, no, I want a black horse, and that implies white horse. So a black horse, midnight, huh? Great. That's teaching you how you just talk to that. But then you really want to talk to it in a code. So let's find where the code is. That is still not code, but I really need an API. So API reference, and that says that is how you actually do it. You're in Python now. You install this and that you don't run at their expense, but you copy paste. So you do copy like this, and maybe then you open screen. And I'm not teaching you the complete story, but I want to show you generally how you do it. So let's remove this unneeded screen and show that yes, you can in fact do this. So that will give you access to OpenAI API. Now we're in the soup of abbreviations. OpenAI, of course, means a closed version of ChatGPT, and ChatGPT, of course, means generative pre-trained transformer. And every word will merit a discussion, but we're not doing this. You can do this, and then you start either sending your commands or actually writing code. So that's a curl command that you can probably send like this, but I'm not experimenting with that right now. And that is how you do it in the code. So the first step is, if you want to use ChatGPT as is, then you use it like you do it in this situation, manually, but in the code. That's called using the API. The next step that you do is you give it starters, like in the first chapter where we looked at, I think here, and then we looked at products and ChatGPT, and it gave you an example of how you talk to it. Well, you can do the same thing in the code. So then you tell, look, I think that I'm a smart guy, and I think you are a smart guy. So skip preliminaries, do it real, and show me. You can give such a prompt, and you'll get a different kind of answer. You can also go the other way around. You can say, you are a middle school teacher, and I'm a 5-year-old boy. Explain to me how that works. Summarize it. You can do the tables. All of that you can also implement in your code. But you might think that's not enough. I heard that there are open source ways. Okay, let's go here. So we looked at that, and first of all, we said that you do open API. Then you include your prompts. That's your instructions. Prompts, I should spell correctly. But then you go to the left and you do this. You go to Hugging Face. And you use the Hugging Face to store your models. Just like you use GitHub, you would store the code there. So you store your models. My models already were saved. And then you use all of the power of Hugging Face, because it will categorize your models. It will allow you to start with any model except for ChatGPT, which is a product not available here. And you can use also the data sets, but you can also use spaces. Think of space as a virtual machine, or maybe a cluster of virtual machines. As a virtual machine, it will have a computer behind it, and it will cost you. So in examples that I've seen, it is 60 cents an hour. That's pretty expensive for those virtual machines. But that's where you can run your computation. So this is the way to run your load on a prefigured environment. So good, you get more power. Then documentation and solution, but pricing. We'll talk about that the space hardware is physical hardware or virtual hardware, and it actually will cost you something. Plus, there are other things. For example, there is inference endpoint. That is just the virtual machine that contains your model. So just as you used to wonder where is my deployment if you're on Spark, let's say, and then you discover that there is a way to do inference deployment endpoints on Amazon, maybe a SageMaker. So too, here you have the inference point, probably also implemented on Amazon because the partnership is in the open world is between Amazon and Hugging Face. And on the other side, in the other corner, you have Open API, ChatGPT, and Microsoft. And here you have Hugging Face, but we should also mention Amazon. So when you do these implementations, you use Open API and its API to get in touch with the ChatGPT, and you pay at this time. And then you direct on conversation in the code with the ChatGPT. Then you go back to Hugging Face. In Hugging Face, you store your data, store your models, maybe use the computations. But now you begin to see that there must be a way to really do it nicely. So you can do it either by going to Microsoft, and Microsoft will allow you to store your private documents and to use ChatGPT, maybe the Microsoft version of ChatGPT. So I personally found that's limiting, and it used to be popular to bash Microsoft. Now it's popular to admire it. But either way, I didn't find that attractive being locked into that, plus not being able to use the exact ChatGPT, even though they promise models. So if you want to use that, I have a link for you. If you want to use a combination, then the link is right here. Okay. So first of all, that is a repository. We will look at that repository. And that is a video that leads you through a project in this repository. So I'll tell you that it is a pretty precious resource because I'm sending my team to their course, that same course, for a significant amount of money. It's a 1,500, but that is the pinnacle. That's the workshop, and it's here. So what is it? Well, I made a copy of that. That's my own fork, but that doesn't matter. It's still their repository by the Fourth Brain, which is a combination of a few companies. Hugging Face is there, and I think a teaching company is there, and they teach you how to do the prompt engineering. That's talking to ChatGPT, and how to combine it with Hugging Face and with the models, and how to do this project-based learning, and they give you examples. So let's look at the examples, but I'll tell you right away that don't try to just run it because it will not work. Here are the notebooks. That is the very first creation of the data, which more or less works, except that you need to modify it. You need to modify it to give it your key. When you do this, then of course it will work with your OpenAI key, but then you don't publish it. I accidentally published it, not in this way, but printing it, and I immediately got a message from GitHub that please allow us to erase it, but by then I already erased it. Keep in mind also that if you do such things, then the previous version, which is stored there forever, will still have that key. So I don't know what trick they used. I was simple-minded, so I deleted the whole repository and then recreated it. So you change that and then you run it. And what you do is you ask ChatGPT, you give it a few prompts on what it should do, you get the results, and then you save it as a data set in repository in Hugging Face. So you can see it here. It's under my personal account on Hugging Face. Here, right? And that is right here. So that is what I saved yesterday. That is my new data set. It's incomplete. It doesn't have more information, but it's there. Then you go to the other labs right here. And by now you get lost in all of these. So you go to the next lab, which is found right next to the previous one, right? Notebooks. And you take the open source blue model, which is pretty big and supposedly good. I don't think it is trained with human. So it is more of a research project. You will not get the same quality. But then you see how it works together. Now, for that to really work, they recommend putting it on Colab, Google Colab. So if you don't know Google Colab, then it is right here. It's like this, Google Colab. It works on your account, and you should be careful which is the account that you're using. In my case, that's the working account. And even that account has like $10 a month. But for that, I get faster GPUs and more memory. And that's what they recommend, because if you're just talking to ChatGPT, well, no resources are needed. But if you're working with the models, then you do need much more resources. Now, right here, if you open Pro, it says Pro. If you open a model, one, if you can show me previous models now, but you see right here, you will see how much memory and how much GPU you have. So it will give you more resources for that money. Again, $10 you can probably spend considering the value of learning or the value of the project. But that is how you do that part. And that is how you combine them together. It's that lab. Again, something didn't work for me because it was not exactly the same environment. So I tried to grab it and run it on my own, but then you run out of resources. So maybe go back. In other words, that's an area that is open. So practically, what do I recommend today? Today, I recommend to think what you need from ChatGPT and simply integrate it into your application. And then you want to improve it. You want to give it private information. So either you go with the Microsoft approach where they use their own search and add that there, or you come here next week and I will show you exactly how to do that other implementation. And now let me look into questions and chats and see. So Giorgio, I wanted to merge text to image prompts of Stable Diffusion, but I also want to add a picture, functional, similar to Midjourney. How would you be able to do it? Is there a model on Hugging Face that can do that, or I would have to train a new model? It looks at first glance, because that's a complicated question, and you need to investigate every one of the things that you mentioned. You mentioned Midjourney, and I recently saw an article about Midjourney and the other OpenAI and another 3 models were compared. So I would guess that you will need to train a new model, but that's deeper and beyond what we can do here. Okay, and yeah, you see yourselves, guys, and that's wonderful that you can talk. So I suggest you take this discussion between yourselves. Okay, now Anything else? Let's look at the chat. No. Okay, so incomplete, but that's life. We will continue next week with more information on all of that. I hope that was useful. And you will all get a recording. You will all have the open information here. All the links are here. So I hope to give you some more stuff next week. Okay, and until next week, I wish everybody a great time. Thank you, Alba, and saying goodbye.